Hello, welcome to another episode of our live stream, My Journey to the Trinity. My name is Hussein. Happy to be with you. Happy to be with me. Hello, Abla, Andrew Martin. Lord bless you. And I hope you're having a good day. And yeah, that was a new thing, that 30-second thing. I've never used that before. I think, I think Apostate Prophet, he's the one that uses that all the time. But yeah, hope you guys are having a good day. And I just was today thinking about the about Muhammad's great love, family love, and specifically with the situation with his son-in-law. I mean, his adopted son and his daughter-in-law slash wife. And let me see, where did it go? I had a picture to go with it. And let me see if I could find that picture again. I don't know if you guys remember this. This is the I call it family affair. I don't know if some of you guys, you have to really be old, yeah, or in my league in order to remember what family affair was. There's this show called Family Affair, and it was in the 60s. I used to watch it when I was a kid, and it had this uncle. Okay, this uncle was taking care of his niece and nephew. Okay, and see the kid, and then this is his sister Buffy, the little girl Buffy, and this guy, I guess his brother dies or something, to where he inherits his brother's kids. And so he starts taking care of his brother's kids. And it's called The Family Affair. There's one thing about the 60s, it kind of started this whole TV thing. It started this whole TV thing about weird families. Let's just think about all the weird, not necessarily weird families, but different kinds of families that we had. What was the one? Andy Griffith. Uh, Andy Griffith was a single father raising his son with the aunt as his Aunt B, as the mother. Uh, there was um, there was Bewitched, where the mother is a witch. There was uh, there was uh, there's the Brady Bunch, where two divorcees got married and then their kids all come together. And then there's the Partridge Family, where the mother is a widow raising her kids by herself. They're originally going to make it divorced, but then you got the show Alice, which was a divorcee, with raising her kids. Then there was The Courtship of Eddie's Father. Uh, these are all shows that I remember. Um, and again, single father, and there's this Chinese woman who's like a maid, and she's kind of like psychic almost. Then there was the nanny and professor, again, kids with the dad, and then the nannies. It was kind of like a Sound of Music, type of a arrangement. So all of these, yeah, they had the Genie, I Dream of Genie, and there was all of these different weird families, and this was one of them. And the butler here, the butler was a famous, and I'm not sure exactly. I think it was kind of a takeoff a little bit from Sound of Music as well. With the British butler. The butler was British, and the father, it wasn't the father, it was the uncle raising the kids. Okay, so I don't know what happened to the brother, the father. Okay, apparently the kids' dad died, or both of their parents died, and so the uncle raises them. All these weird family arrangements. Hollywood was foisting on America, and so you can just think about all the family. It was very rare to have a normal two-parent home. Very rare. I mean, you did have I Love Lucy, but that was in the 50s. Then you had Leave It to Beaver. Then you had, but then after that, they really started going into some really strange arrangements. And so anyway, one of them was called Family Affair. So this is one I remember this. I watched it a little bit when I was a kid. One thing that I remember about it in particular was this girl right here. I don't know if you guys remember. She was Buffy. Okay, this is Buffy. I'm teaching what giving you guys.
Uncle Bill! Uncle Bill! Uncle Bill! Uncle Bill! Uncle Bill! Uncle Bill!
Okay, see the girl? Her name was Buffy on this show, Buffy. And it was real devastating what happened. After the show ran from, I think, 1966 to 1971, like 5 years. And then after the show, about 5 years after the show, she was, she couldn't have been that old, around 18, I think, you know, um, about 18 years old. And she died of a drug overdose. And so I always remember that was like, whoa, man, first time, not the Vampire Slayer. This was before the Vampire Slayer Buffy. But anyway, so that's the family affair angle. And yeah, it was the first time, I think, for me. It was like the first time I heard about drugs, and drug overdose and stuff like that, even though it was happening a lot in the 60s. So, all right, well, then you have Mohammed. Okay, and let me see here. There's several. There's several. What's interesting is the way that Muslims try to justify, the story of Zayd and Zainab, and the way that the story is very well known. Muhammad had a adopted son named Zayd. Zayd was apparently Khadija's slave. Muhammad adopted him as his son. And then he married his cousin Zainab to Zayd. And this is while he was still Khadija's husband. And so during that time, he got Zayd and Zainab married. And then after Khadija died, who knows how she died? Some people suspect she too was poisoned. Some people suspect that. So anyway, uh, whether she was or not, he started all the lust that he had. He let it loose after she died, and he started marrying lots of women. Started out with his contemporary, someone who was about his own age, which was Salwa. And after Salwa, I'm sorry, not Salwa, Soda. He married the 6-year-old Aisha, and then he married Hafsa and married Salama. And then he had up to 13 wives, and so he was, very active. And but one day he went to visit his son Zayd, and when he got there to the tent, it says that Allah caused the wind to blow, and the wind blew open the tent door of Zayd's tent. And lo and behold, before him was Zainab, Zayd's wife, Muhammad's cousin, not fully dressed. Muhammad saw her and he said, Subhan Mukallib al Qulub. Praise is the one who turns hearts, whatever that meant. Okay. And Zainab heard him say that as he walked away. So when Zayd came home, she told Zayd what had happened, and Zayd understood. He understood that Muhammad wanted to marry his wife. And so he asked Muhammad, you want me to divorce her for you? And he says, no, keep your wife. Okay. But then Muhammad went to Aisha's house to get her permission. And he got into his seizure, his revelation seizure, when he starts shaking. Some people think it was an epileptic seizure, but when that thing used to come on him, that evil spirit, he would, the hadith says that his face would turn red, he'd sweat, and he'd make a noise like a camel. And so that happened. He was on the floor of Aisha's house having this seizure. And then after the seizure, it says he smiled. And when he smiled, beware when Muhammad smiles. Whenever Muhammad smiles, it is trouble, you guys. And when Muhammad smiles, it is trouble. And so what happened is that he said that Allah said that he married Zainab to Muhammad. So Allah did it. It wasn't Muhammad, you guys. It was Allah who did this. And there's even a Quran verse to prove that it was Allah who did this. This is not like Muhammad's lust or doing. This was Allah's doing. And there's a Quran verse to prove it. So please don't be so, negative about it. Allah commanded him to do this. Same way Allah commanded him to marry Aisha too. Remember that Allah was involved in that marriage too, because it says Muhammad had a dream of her coming to him on a green carpet, green flying carpet, that Jibreel was bringing her to Muhammad. So Muhammad's marriages were divinely ordained, or spiritually ordained. There's a spirit behind them. So anyway, Aisha says, interesting how your God hastens to fulfill your desires, O Prophet. And anybody who reads this story is going to think, it's so interesting. How convenient. And it's really interesting that how convenient it is that it was so convenient. It was so obviously, it was so clear what was happening. This was a duck that walked like a duck, that quacked like a duck, that looked like a duck. They say if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Well, this walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it smells like a duck, it, looks like a duck, everything. This is definitely a duck. And it's what you think it is. It's exactly what you think it is. And Muhammad knew that it looked like incest. And Muhammad knew it looked like incest. And so what Muhammad did to remedy this, well, not Muhammad, Allah did this, is he sent down a verse abolishing adoption so that adoption is no longer practiced. It is practiced, but it's practiced in a very with restrictions. For instance, that the kid maintains his original father's name, and the kid cannot be inherited. He's not going to get an inheritance. And so, this is like if you go to like Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, all those areas, you're going to see that there's a kind of a flimsy kind of adoption, but the kid does not take the adopted father's name. And it's very clear that that from now on, adopted kids definitely know that they're not the normal kids. They're not part of the. They're not as much as children as the normal children, the physical children are. Now, I don't think that's a very good thing. You know, you don't want your kids feeling like that. But that's what Muhammad wanted because he wanted to marry his daughter-in-law, and the only way to do it and not look like it was incest is to abolish adoption and to say that Zayd, his adopted son, is no longer his son because Muhammad has no sons. Okay, so he was even called Zayd ibn Muhammad. Zayd was even called Muhammad's son. His name was called Zayd ibn Muhammad. We can look for the hadiths, you'll find it. Okay, but from now on, he's not Muhammad's son. Muhammad has no sons. Okay, Zayd went back to being Zayd, somebody else's son, or his original father's son. So he did this so he could marry Zayd's wife. There's other hadiths that describe, oh, there were so many problems between Zayd and his wife. There were just so many problems that he had no choice but to divorce her, you know, and they just didn't get along. They had been married for several years. I mean, they got married before Muhammad left Mecca, and I'm talking about ZAYD and Zainab. So we could say that was he left Mecca around 620, 622 or 623. So it would have been probably around 622 or 621 that he married her. And he was married for her for until about 627. That's when Muhammad desired her, and Allah told him to marry her. So they had been together about 6 years, but then all of a sudden he started having ED, erectile dysfunction. According to there are some hadiths that talk about him having ED and problems. And then they were fighting all the time, and Zayd just had his fill of her, depending who you talk to. And so he said to Muhammad, "You want me to divorce her?" Because Muhammad did that thing where he said, "Subhan muqallib al-qulub," you know, praise be the one who turns hearts. You know what, you guys? If you ask me, if you want my opinion about this, not that my opinion counts for a whole lot on this. I'm not a scholar like some others, but this story sounds to me almost like a spy caper, you know, like, you know, spy story where they have a secret code. And I'll tell you, this is what I have heard said. Let me just tell you what I have heard. I've heard it said like this. Muhammad was married to two-toothed Khadija. I mean, Khadija, who had two teeth. Okay, Khadija had two teeth, and she was old, but she had money. She had money. Remember what Aretha Franklin says? Your kiss is sweeter than honey, but so is my money. Uh, so Muhammad was working. Khadija was not just his wife, she was his boss. And so he could not get married. He couldn't even look at another woman while he was married to Khadija. Okay, while I was married to Khadija, he was a very good person, very good husband, very good boy, because he needed her money and she was his boss. And he was just waiting for her to kick the bucket so he could get her money. So he had to be really good. Did he poison her at the end? Is there a possibility that he poisoned Khadija? I don't know. I don't know. And I don't want to speculate, you know, but I will tell you there are some people who think he did. Okay, let's ask Grok. See if Grok has anything to say about this, okay? Um, I know Grok is very Islamic, so I don't think she's going to say anything, but is it possible that Muhammad poisoned Khadija, his wife? Is it possible that Muhammad poisoned his wife Khadija?
No, that's straight conspiracy territory. No solid evidence in hadiths or biographies. Khadija died naturally in 619 CE, around 65, after nursing Muhammad through a tough illness. Some fringe sites spin poison theories from weak links, like her drinking bad milk or whatever. But mainstream scholars call it bogus. Grief's story feels realer. He was wrecked, called it the year of sorrow. Why the suspicion?
Because I think he did poison her so he could go get some younger wives like his 6-year-old wife, Aisha.
Khadija dying to clear the way for Aisha? Nah, timeline doesn't even line up. Khadija passed when Muhammad was 53. Aisha's betrothal rumors start way after. Marriage consummated maybe when she hit 9, around 623 CE, 4 years post Khadija.
But he married her 3 years earlier. When oh man, dude, that AI is a Muslim. She is. But you know what? She really did prove the point that because I mean, he didn't marry Aisha instantly. He married, first of all, Soda, and then he married Aisha. And he was 54 when he consummated his relationship with Aisha, but he was 51 when he married her, um, when she was 6 years old. So I think my theory still stands. Okay, it's crazy. It's crazy, but I'm not the only one who thinks this. There's a lot of people who think this. So anyway, so this is a theory, okay, and I've heard it once. Okay, I've heard it from a very reputable source. Okay, I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I heard it from a very reputable source that Muhammad, Khadija. This is what the belief is: that Khadija is the one who gave her slave ZAYD to Mohammed. So she gave ZAYD, the slave, to Mohammed. Mohammed also set him free and adopted him as a son. And what does he do? He marries his beautiful cousin Zainab to ZAYD. Now, why would he do this strange maneuver? Why would he do this strange maneuver? There's a theory that he did this in order to keep Zainab available to him. And when the time was right and he had everything set up, then he went to ZAYD and spoke the secret code word. And that code word, he knew that he was coming to claim his wife. So that's a possibility. It looks like it could be possible because, it just is kind of a crazy story. But anyway, he did desire her. He wanted her, and he got her. And so let's just look at our friend Yasser Qadi, because Yasser Qadi has great wisdom to instruct us.
These are the three primary modes of attack. I wanted to conclude by giving some examples, some lengthy examples. We only have 10 minutes. I'll try to summarize them. The first example, and by the way, I've given 3 tactics. I'm not being exclusive. These are the primary 3 tactics. Also, most of the time, an attack against the honor of our Prophet ﷺ is a combination of these 3. It's not that only one is used. A story is invented, bits of fabrication, bits of distorted truths, bits of cultural values, and then presented. And so an example of this, one example, in a little bit of detail. The story of Zainab binti Jahsh and the Prophet ﷺ's marriage to Zainab. Now, Zainab bint Jahsh was the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ, and she was married to Zayd. And Zayd, radiallahu anhu, was the adopted son of the Prophet ﷺ. As you all know, he had adopted Zayd. And so he was called Zayd ibn Muhammad. And just like in our culture, American culture, adopted children and biological children are considered the same. Morally, I'm saying. Morally. If you try to say, no, there's a difference, morally society will say, oh, you're being so mean, you're being so unfair. Cultural values, once again. Islamically, in the beginning period of Islam, it was the same. Adopted children, biological children are the same. And so when the Prophet ﷺ adopted Zayd, his name became Zayd ibn Muhammad. And the wife of Zayd, i.e. Zainab, became the daughter-in-law of the Prophet ﷺ. And as you all know, daughter-in-laws are permanent mahram. Even if the marriage breaks between the son and the wife, the father-in-law always remains a mahram. This is a strange thing, subhanAllah. The husband becomes a non-mahram after the divorce. The husband becomes a non-mahram because after the divorce is over, but the father-in-law remains a mahram forever. So, in this case, when Zayd and Zainab were married, the Prophet ﷺ eventually ended up marrying Zainab. What is the Orientalist version? The Orientalists all agree. There is pretty much ijma', unanimous consensus amongst them, that the version of events goes as follows. The Prophet ﷺ allegedly fell in love with Zainab. He went to visit her in her house, and she opened the door, and she was wearing clothes that typically she would wear when she's sleeping. In other words, not fully dressed up. And that the Prophet ﷺ saw her beauty and was impressed by that and fell in love with her. And when Zayd heard about this, then he divorced his wife so that the Prophet ﷺ could marry her. And Allah Azza wa Jal conveniently revealed, according to them, verses that talk about adopted children are not real children and you can marry their wives. This is the non-Muslim version of events, that the Prophet ﷺ, a'udhu billah, saw Zainab dressed inappropriately, fell in love with her at first sight, and wanted to marry her. So he concocted these verses to say that adopted children are not biological children.
Well, this is what the hadith says. You know, whatever you want. Even the Quran mentions this, because the Quran mentions that Muhammad knew that this looks like incest. Muhammad knew this looks like incest. And so, according to the Quran, Muhammad was afraid of what the people were going to say. According to the Quran, Muhammad was afraid of what people were going to say. And so Allah comes to him with a verse saying, it's more important for you to fear what Allah thinks, not to fear what the people think. So Muhammad knew that this looks really scuzzy in the eyes of the people. Okay, so he's making it seem like, oh, this is the Christian missionaries who come up with this. No, this is in your Quran. The Quran says these things. So
the problem with this sequence of events is that it is presented as undisputed fact from within the Islamic tradition. It's as if
it is within Islam. It's not like the problem is that it's presented as fact in the Islamic tradition. What do you do with it? I mean, what are we supposed to do? We as the Christian missionaries, the evil Christian missionaries who are twisting and everything like that. What are we supposed to go? What other basis is there? What else do we do? Where else do we find out what really happened here? All this, there's so much information about this story. There's so many sources, including some very respected hadith books like Tabaqat al-Kubra by Ibn Sa'd. This is a very, the great classes. These are some of the most respected Islamic scholars, Sa'd, Ibn Sa'd, and that book, Tabaqat al-Kubra, this, and Tabari. Tabari is one of the ones that talks about this. All the major hadiths talk about this. So he says the problem is that it's presented as fact. It's like, hello, it's in your books. If you can't trust your own books, then, what are you going to say? The problem isn't us. The problem is not us Christian missionaries. We're trying to make things look bad. What the problem is that this looks really bad and it's in your books and we read it.
this is the only version of events. Yet the fact of the matter is that this version is only one version of the story. And let us call this
only one version, because there's so many different versions. But all of the versions have Muhammad going to the tent and falling in lust and love with his daughter-in-law. And then the Quran takes over from there, saying that Allah married her to him. The word in Arabic is zawajnakaha. Zawajnakaha. We married her to you. This is Allah's direct intervention into this situation. Allah. And the way it says, لما انتهى زيد منها وطرا, when Zayd was done with her. I mean, Zayd, that's it. He had his fill of her, he did all he wants with her, and that's it. Then Allah married her. The word in Arabic is so clear. زوجناكها. The word for marry in Arabic is not nikah, which is what Muslims say. In most of the Quran verses where it talks about marriage, it uses the word nikah, but it's not really marriage. It means just having sex. But zawajnaka, zawaj comes from the word zoj, which means pair, like a pair, male and female, a pair. Zawajnakaha, we married her to you. I mean, Allah did this. This whole thing, Muhammad had nothing to do with it, you guys. You're trying to make Muhammad look bad from this. That's very evil, because this was completely Allah's doing.
For lack of a better term, the love story version. There are other versions that exist in classical and medieval texts, which are generally considered more acceptable and more authentic. In fact, Sahih al-Bukhari, Tafsir ibn Kathir, or the Sirah ibn Ishaq, all of the standard references present a very different picture. Before we get into who's right and wrong, don't you think it's hypocritical for a non-Muslim to come and pounce on the most sensationalist story and ignore all the other versions, and then not even tell you the other versions exist? Not even question the fact that there are other versions of the story? Let me give you, for example, the earliest tafsirs written, Tafsir of Abdul Razak in 211, Tafsir of Ibn Abi Hatim in 327, the Tafsir of Ibn Kathir, the earliest Sirah books written, Sirah of Ibn Ishaq, the earliest Hadith books written, the Hadith of the Sahih of Imam Bukhari. All of these books give a radically different story.
One of the it says here, this is Sahih, Sunan Nisa'i. I perceive the smell of maghafir, a nasty smelling gum on you. Okay, this is Aisha saying, have you eaten maghafir? that would be like Dentine or Wrigley's gum. He came in to one of them, and she said that to him. He said, no, rather I drank honey at the house of Zainab bint Jahsh, but I will never do it again. He's never going to do it again, and Allah's going to intervene, I'm sure. Then the following was revealed. Allah came to his rescue, people. Allah came to his rescue. Look what it says. Then the following was revealed. O Prophet, why do you forbid for yourself that which Allah has allowed to you? Why do you forbid to yourself that which Allah has allowed to you? Here Allah comes to the rescue. It's so, Ya ayyuhan nabi lam tahrim ma ahal Allah laka. Don't forbid what Allah made permissible to you. And that's Allah intervened here to help Muhammad. Same way, you guys, Allah intervened when he had sex with Maria the Copt on Hafsa's bed. And then Hafsa and Aisha got all huffy puffy about it. And then he goes, pouts in the mosque and says, oh, that's it. For a whole month, I'm not going to have sex with anybody. And then on the 29th day, it got a little bit too much for him. And then Allah sends a verse saying, hey, you should fear Allah more than you fear people, and, if you're divorce your wives, Allah would give you better ones than them. So Allah always comes to the rescue. Always comes to the rescue of Muhammad, his man. So here he came to the rescue. It was revealed right, he said, but I will never do it again. He's never going to drink honey at Zainab's house again. Dude, what does that mean, drink honey? But I'll never do it again. But then Allah intervened and says, why do you forbid from yourself that which Allah has allowed you? Okay. So got all these stories about Zainab and honey. Lots of honey, and then the smell. There was a very powerful smell of this honey. This honey had a very distinctive aroma that kind of gave it away that he was doing something. So anyway, I was looking for the other one, the other hadiths that would talk about when the door flew open, and so he saw her, and then Allah gave Zainab to Muhammad. So looking for a source from Muhammad poisoning Aisha, but I found that Shia source confirming that Umar, Hafsa, Abu Bakr, and Aisha conspiring against. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. There are some people who believe that Muhammad, he died on her lap. You know what, you guys? I'm going to do something that it pains me to do this. Let me see if I can. The word lap. Okay. Okay, the word lap is used a lot in stories of Muhammad. Let's just kind of curious here. Okay, there's a kid that sat on Muhammad's lap and he urinated on it, and he urinated in the Prophet's lap. Okay. Okay. Then says Aisha's presence, that Ali was appointed by Muhammad before he died. She said, when was he appointed? He was resting under my bosom on my lap, and he called for a basin when he became limp in my lap and died, and I did not realize it. So when did he appoint him? The Prophet used to lean on my lap and recite Quran when I was in menses. Okay. There was a point where he was reclining on Dahya bin Kalbi's lap. Dahya bin Kalbi lap. Let's see. It was totally innocent. Says the Prophet asked, I was informed that Jibreel came to Muhammad while Salama was with him. Jibreel started talking to the Prophet, and the Prophet asked Salama, who is this? She replied, it's Dahya al-Kalbi. When Gabriel had left, Salama said, by Allah, I did not take him for anybody other than Dahya, till I heard the sermon of the Prophet informed about the news of Jibreel. So, Dahya was hanging around a lot, and there's a point where he had his head in his lap, and Dahya was a very close friend to Muhammad. So, but he was, the reason I wanted to look up his lap, because it says he put his head in his lap, and nearest resemblance to him. Dahya bin Kalb so he poured into his lap. Okay, turning them. Okay. 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 Anyway, there is that story, but Holy Prophet's lap. Okay. Cut one pieces into. I'll look that up. I'll look that up for you. I do have it in Arabic, but I don't have it in English. But anyway, we'll go ahead and go on. So, okay. Let's see. Sources in Arabic mention that a Jewish woman from Qurayza poisoning him, but they put a higher probability that Aisha did it. Yeah, well, I thought it was from Khaybar. From Khaybar, it was a Jewish woman from Khaybar who made who made the lamb, the leg of lamb for Muhammad, and so yeah, the leg of lamb. So anyway, let's go back to our friend just to kind of show the way that they justify this, the Zainab situation.
What is the story there? The story there is that the Prophet ﷺ was informed by Allah that eventually Zainab would be his wife.
It was informed. See, this kind of goes with the story that I told you, that he used Zayd to kind of hold on to her, to keep someone else from taking her until he could go take her. And so there was a code word that he gave. This is kind of what he's saying right here.
And ZAYD and Zainab began having arguments and disputes. ZAYD did not want to remain married to Zainab. So ZAYD came to the Prophet ﷺ wanting a divorce. And the Prophet ﷺ felt awkward because he knew that when that divorce takes place and the iddah is over, Zainab would become his wife, and he himself did not like the cultural taboo of marrying a supposed daughter-in-law.
Cultural taboo. It's not your conscience. It's the cultural taboo of marrying your own daughter.
So he told Zayd, ittaqillah, fear Allah and don't divorce her. He told Zayd not to divorce her, and he feared men's criticism of this cultural taboo. Not that he had love of Zainab, rather he was embarrassed at marrying a supposed.
Yeah, I agree with him there. I agree with him there. It wasn't that he loved her. I don't think this has anything to do with love.
Daughter-in-law. So he wanted to stall it. Zayd wanted a divorce. This is the version of Sahih Bukhari. And the Prophet says, no, you stay with her. Don't divorce her. And Allah Azza wa Jalla then revealed verses in Surah Ahzab. Why were you scared of the people? The Prophet, this is a verse in the Quran. Why were you scared of the people? وَتَخْشَى النَّاسِ. It is more befitting that you are scared of Allah. Shouldn't be embarrassed at the people's statements. There is no love story in Sahih Bukhari, in Ibn Kathir, and all of these books. The questioner.
I agree with him. There is no love story. Just in case anybody's thinking, oh, there's a love story between a man and his daughter-in-law. No, there isn't. It's a lust story.
Where does this love story exist? Response, again, we're getting a little bit academic here, but it exists in a tafsir called Tafsir Muqatil ibn Sulaiman. And Muqatil ibn Sulaiman, by unanimous consensus, is not a scholar. He's not a historian. He is.
So you got to throw somebody under the bus. Somebody has to be thrown under the bus, that this story is interpreted the way it's written. And so he's going to throw this guy, Muqatil, under the bus. But I tell you, this guy, Muqatil, is a very well-respected scholar. I mean, I've seen so many things by him.
Is a storyteller. He is a storyteller. In other words, he's a tabloid paper. He's not the New York Times. Literally, he's a tabloid paper. So the Orientalists, imagine, and I said this at an academic conference when I was defending the story in a certain context. I said, imagine walking into a bookstore, walking into a supermarket, and ignoring the New York Times, ignoring, the Washington Post, ignoring every single reputable, the Times Magazine, Newsweek, and getting your news from the Daily Inquirer, for example. This is the equivalent of what these people are doing. They ignore every single authentic, legitimate book, and they go to the most obscure references. How many of you have even heard of Tafsir Muqatil ibn Sulaiman? Yes, it exists. It's not a fabrication. Meaning the book is not a fabrication. What's inside it might be. But the book itself, it exists. How many of you are aware of it? Nobody. But these guys hunt down these stories, extract them, and popularize them. So this is one example. There are many other examples as well, which we don't have time to get into.
Okay. So
I want.
I wanted to show you, there's some others who also talk about this, and it's just kind of interesting the way people try to justify this. Okay, and let me see. Okay, this guy right here. He also, now this guy's a Shi'i. He's a Shi'i guy.
Jewish tribe, the leader of that Jewish tribe. And he came from the tribe of Banu Qurayza. So from her father's side, she came from the tribe of who? Banu Qurayza, from her father's.
But this isn't the one that I want to show. I don't know if yeah. But I was just watching some different ones and just listening to some of the different ways that they talk about this story and some of the ways that they try to justify it. And one of the things that they say is that there was shame, which the Quran does to address this, and that there was actual shame on men, who'd want to marry their daughters-in-law. And so by eliminating adoption, Mohammed here eliminated the shame too. By it's hard to keep a straight face when you say that. By eliminating adoption, he also eliminated the shame that some men might have felt about marrying their daughters-in-law. And so, this is, because Muhammad, you got to think about it, he never did anything from a selfish motive. The reason he did this was because of this shame. The way America Psychology 101 classes that put a really big emphasis on shame, and how shame is you feel unworthy. One thing that they don't say is the reason you feel unworthy is because you did something stupid. That's why you feel unworthy. Well, they want to get rid of that shame and replace it with self-esteem. In the same way, Muhammad here wanted to help the self-esteem. It's kind of like the self-esteem, you guys. Just Muhammad is way before his time, aware of the importance of self-esteem. And he wanted to help the self-esteem of men who wanted to marry their daughters-in-law. And so this was a way to build up the self-esteem of these men who wanted to marry their daughters-in-law. And Muhammad, he was just a man ahead of his time. Even California's education system, public education system, could not have come up with a better self-esteem curriculum to help, people feel better about themselves. And, and I know some of you are thinking that I'm actually making this up, but in reality, I'm not making this up. It really says these things. It really says these things. Now, I'm just looking here at the different Arabic tafsir to see if I can find muqatil. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it here, but I'm just looking real quickly here. There's a list in tafsir.com of all the different exegetes of the Quran, the scholars and stuff. I want to see if they have al-Muqatil, they have everybody else here. Shirazi, Shankiti, all these very well known, al-Tantawi, al-Sha'rawi, al-Mutalihin. I'm looking for Jazairi, Juzi. I'm not seeing al-Muqatil. I know it's here because I've seen that before, but you know what? I don't want to keep you guys waiting here too long. So I can go ahead and look that up myself, and then maybe another time I can show it to you. What Al-Muqatil said about this story, this very strange story of Muhammad wanting to marry his daughter-in-law, and the way Allah intervened. And then, by the way, you guys, I also Zayd himself, he was willing to divorce his wife for his father. When his father wanted her, he was happy to divorce his wife for his father. And he actually, okay, here's Al-Muqatil. We actually found it. Okay, let's see. See, moderate. Okay, I found it. I'm not sure if this is going to work, you guys. It's pretty long, but let me see if I could. Okay. Oh, shoot. Can it? Here it is. In the Nabi, okay. خطب زينب بنت جحش على زيد. Okay. Okay. يعني عبد الله. Okay. وذلك إن زيد الكلبي قال يا نبي أخطب علي. فقال النبي اوكي ساق إليهم 10 دنانير. اوكي امسك عليك زوجتك. اوكي فهو هويها. اوكي النبي. اوكي وقالت زينب للنبي. Okay, let's see right here. فكان النبي يسأل زيد بعد ذلك كيف هي معك فيشكو عليه. فقال له النبي اتق الله وامسك عليك زوجتك. ففي كلبه وغير ذلك فأنزل. يا boy. You know what, you guys, this really is من تنكحوا. Okay. تقول إن زيد. Okay. I'm going to go ahead just and translate this part right here, just because this is from Muqatil that the guy was talking about, that Yasser Qadi was talking about. This is from Muqatil. It's in Arabic, but I'm going to go ahead and translate it into English here. Let me just, it may be worth reading what is said here, because it's a little bit funny. I'm a little bit slower with Arabic than I am with English, so I wanted to. He brought him 10 dinars and 60 dirhams. But the Prophet gave him all that. Zayd entered with her. It was not long before that he complained to Muhammad about what he was experiencing from her. Muhammad entered and admonished her. When he spoke to her, he was pleased with her beauty, her charm, her elegance. Dude, he noticed everything. Her beauty, her charm, her elegance. He was pleased. Muhammad was pleased with her. You guys, so Zayd's having marital problems, and he comes to his dad for marital advice. His dad, like any loving father, wanted to counsel his daughter-in-law to find out what's going on. But while he's counseling her, he was very pleased with her beauty, her charm, and her elegance. I don't know if this reminds any of you guys of any story, but if you guys remember that, remember Uthman bin Farouk, that his friend married a girl, an American revert, and then they started having marital problems, and his friend called Uthman, said, hey, I'm having trouble with my wife. And then Uthman bin Farouk was very willing to counsel the wife. And as he was counseling her, he was also pleased with her charm, manner, and beauty, and ended up marrying her. So anyway, so the story kind of repeats itself. But let me just say, okay, it was a matter that the Almighty had decreed. Yabaye, yabaye, yabaye. It says, when he spoke to her, he was pleased with her beauty, her charm, and her elegance. It was a matter that Allah the Almighty had decreed. And so the prophet returned with what the Almighty had willed in his heart regarding her. After that, the prophet, peace and blessings be upon, said, how is she with you? So he wanted to find out, so he complained about her, and he said, fear God and keep your wife. Okay. I have placed the matter in your hand, O messenger. Then the prophet came to Zayd and saw her standing up, and she was beautiful, white. Okay, so now Muhammad came to their house. This was the time when he came to her house, and he saw her standing up. I'd love to see what the Arabic says, because actually it does say that here. Zayd, let me see if I could read the Arabic here. سلام أتى فأبصر زينب قائمة. He saw Zainab قائمة. That means rising. وكانت حسنا بيضاء, and she was very beautiful and white. من أتم نساء قريش, of the most healthiest women of Quraysh. Okay. The prophet was infatuated with her and said, glory be to God, the changer of hearts. Zayd realized this and said, oh messenger, give me permission to divorce her. فقال سبحان محتل بالقلوب ففتن زيد فقال يا رسول الله ائذن لي في طلاقها. Okay, and the messenger said, well, keep your wife and fear God. So, okay, I'm not going to keep you guys here, but if you need to go, that's okay. I understand, but I'm just kind of curious what the next part says in this, because this is getting funny, man. So let me go ahead and write put the rest of it here. Wow. Okay. See, I got the Arabic, but the Arabic I'm a little bit slow with the Arabic, so I like this translate. And then it says, and Zayd divorced her after that. So Muhammad said, keep your wife, and Zayd divorced her. Then Allah the Almighty revealed. This is what Allah said right after that. Oh, Muhammad, to him Allah has bestowed favor. Oh, Muhammad, to him upon whom Allah has bestowed favor with Islam, and upon whom you have bestowed favor with emancipation. And Zayd was a Bedouin in the pre-Islamic era who had been a freed slave in Islam. So he was taken captive, and the Prophet, may Allah bless him and give him peace, found him and set him free. He said, keep your wife and fear Allah, and conceal within yourself, meaning keep it secret in your heart, O Muhammad, that he would have divorced her, that which Allah is to disclose, meaning he will make it manifest to you when he reveals it as a Quran. So Allah was waiting to send down a Quran verse that had been written from eternity, from eternity in the uncreated Quran. Allah has more right that you should fear him in her matter. So he recited the Prophet, the verse to the people, because Allah revealed the matter of Zainab when he desired her. Yabaye. Yabaye. Okay, and when Zayd had no longer any need of her, that's what the Quran says, meaning intercourse. We married her to you, meaning the Prophet. Zayd ibn Haritha divorced her, and when her waiting period had ended, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, married her. So you see how Allah was in control of this. This was Allah's doing. Please don't say getting up. Yeah. You know, Muhammad was really kind of innocent. Allah did all this. He was just obeying Allah, you know, and he had a little bit of a conscience left to where he knew, dude, I should not be marrying my daughter. It's not a good look for me to be marrying my daughter. Okay. Let's just be honest. Let's just put it out there. It's not a good look to be marrying my daughter-in-law. Okay. I understand this. This Muhammad understood this, but Allah came, sent down a verse from eternity. Jibreel came to the rescue with the verse that will make things clear. Mubin. So yeah, that's kind of the family affair. Mohammed, Zayd, and Zainab. And let me see if I could find this other guy. Just I have one of them. Oh, you know, Zainab was a very virtuous woman, you guys. And it's so important to understand that. So let's just watch this guy because he really understands. Someone who really seems to understand the gravity of this situation.
Zainab bint Jahsh was a noblewoman from the Quraysh tribe and a cousin of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. She was known for her deep faith, generosity, and strong personality. Zainab was first married to Zayd ibn Haritha.
Look, he's even wearing a suit. Looks like he bought it at the suit warehouse. Look at that suit. That does not look. Even got the 3 buttons on it. Doesn't look to me like that is a jalabiya, you know.
The freed slave and adopted son of the Prophet. Although she initially hesitated, she agreed to the marriage out of obedience to Allah and His Messenger. However, their union was not harmonious. Coming from a noble lineage,
Look how they're fighting. Look at the discontentment that's between them.
Zainab's
And he's black too. I wonder if he was black, you know, he was a slave. And Muhammad definitely had lots of black slaves.
struggled with the marriage, and over time, their differences grew. Eventually, she initiated the divorce, which Zayd accepted with dignity. Following their separation, Allah revealed a command in the Quran, Surah Al-Ahzab 33:37.
Really how it happened, you guys. What this guy's saying isn't really how it happened. Muhammad came and did his little code words. Zayd understood it and then understood that Muhammad wanted him to divorce his wife so that he could have her.
Instructing the Prophet to marry Zainab.
Allah instructed the Prophet to marry Zainab.
This marriage abolished the pre-Islamic belief that an adopted son was equal to a biological one.
See why this is important, you guys? Do you understand here? Please, if you forget everything about this today, please don't forget this. This is so important. This abolishes the pre-Islamic idea that an adopted son is equal to a biological one. It's very important that the adopted son know for sure that he's inferior to the biological son. That's so important. It's so important that that adopted kids not feel that they're really the children of their parents. So it's a very important. See, Muhammad wanted to spread his goodness to. Muhammad had a real issue. He had lots of daddy issues because he didn't know his daddy. And so he really tried to hurt that father-son relationship because he didn't have it. So he was trying to keep others from having it.
And established a new understanding of family ties in Islam. Zainab was a deeply religious and
Deeply religious.
charitable woman. She spent much of her time in prayer and fasting,
One time.
and she generously gave her wealth to those in need, earning her the title, the Mother of the Poor. Despite being among the
She's like Mother Teresa, you guys. She's like Mother Teresa.
Prophet's wives, she remained humble and devoted. She once
Not really true, you guys. She wasn't that humble and devoted. She used to always brag because these wives, they hated each other. These wives hated each other. And they were jealous of each other. But one thing that Zainab used to do is she used to brag to the others and say, "I'm the only one that Allah married me to Muhammad. I'm the only one that Allah very specifically got involved to marry me to Muhammad." So she used to always do that.
said, "It was Allah Himself who gave me in marriage to His messenger
See, yeah, Allah himself.
from above the heavens." Zainab's life is a testament to resilience, unwavering faith, and generosity. She passed away during the caliphate of Umar ibn al-Khattab and was honored as one of the most virtuous women of her time. Want more inspiring?
Just exactly that. So, yeah. So, yeah. There's so much to learn about, we wicked Christian missionaries.
Zainab bint Jahsh was a noblewoman from the Quraysh tribe.
There's another one. There was another one too. I don't know if I can find it, but I don't think I have it here, but they really work very hard. Okay, this one talks a little bit about it. Let's just watch a little bit of this guy. This is the Shi'i guy.
Exceptions about why the Prophet married Zainab. You will find some people who are critical of Islam or some Orientalists. They really do the Prophet a lot of injustice when they analyze this incident. So it's very important for us.
How else can you analyze this without coming up thinking this guy just wanted his cousin?
To analyze it properly. Let's go a little bit before that to see how the Prophet married Zainab. The Prophet had an adopted son by the name of, source mentions later, the father of Zayd. He comes to take him. He tells him, "Come with us, you're my son." Zayd big on taqwa, equality, but they didn't listen. Marry my cousin Zainab bin Jahsh. She comes from the, when he recited this verse to them, they're like, "We admit what we did was wrong, and since this angered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are regretful and we will accept." Fine. If that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, and if that's a sign of faith, we will show faith. So they did have faith, they struggled with this idea, but eventually they did submit. So Zainab, she wasn't happy with this, but in the end she said, "Okay, no problem." So now, Zayd, the adopted son of the Prophet, he marries Zainab. percent of the people will not. If we assume that this is a tradition that they have, well, it's wrong. We're not ashamed of saying that this is wrong. This is something that Islam broke the barrier for. So there might be some families who do that, but are they living by the true standards of Islam? Maybe not. We don't accept that. Yes, because Sayyids usually have Sayyids, no big controversy. Yes, it was a little bit controversial for the Prophet to have Zainab marry Zayd, because the Arabs, they don't replace your biological father with someone else. Someone else can care for you and have a greater right. Now, today, there are some people who look at this story 14 centuries later, and they put a Hollywood twist to it. Look at what these Orientalists say, unfortunately. And basically, this is how the story goes. We have some historians, unfortunately, who have taken some weak hadiths, fabrications. For instance, we have Tabari, we have Ibn al-Athir. They mention this when explaining this verse in the Holy Quran that I will recite. They create this love story about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They say the Prophet, he went to the house of Zayd and he saw the face of Zainab. And he was captivated by her beauty, so he fell in love with her.
By the way, it doesn't say he saw her face. He doesn't say he saw her face.
When he fell in love with her, he decided in his heart that I want her for myself. She's so pretty, she's so beautiful, I want her for myself. But he didn't reveal that. He didn't make this known to people. So he was waiting for the proper opportunity in order to marry Zainab. And as soon as Zayd divorced her, the Prophet went and he married her.
Why did Zayd divorce her? Because Muhammad told him to.
This is kind of, the story that's given. Let's look at the verse in the Holy Quran and see how this is a big, big misconception. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
I'm going to make you guys sit through that again. We listened to so many different, Yep, yes, Houston Euler. Kalbi wa Jahish. So, yes, those are the animal names. There's many others too. There's Hareda. Hareda means kittens. There's Dhi'ib, which means wolf. There's Thalabi. Thalab is a fox. Okay. Hamar means donkey. So, all right, you guys. When Jesus called the Canaanite woman, she didn't approach. I was just thinking about that last night. It was very interesting what Jesus said to her when she said, "Heal my daughter." He says, "Not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to the dogs. Let the children be filled first." And she said, "Yes, Lord, but the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the children's table." And Jesus said to her, "For that saying, go home, your daughter is healed." He said, for that saying, for those words that she spoke, Jesus said, your daughter is healed. So, it was specifically because of the words she said. It showed her heart, her humility. So, all right, you guys. Well, we made it to an hour and 14 minutes. So, thank you for being here. Do we have any Muslims? I don't know if we have any Muslims who would like to come on. If there are any Muslims who would like to come on and help us understand this whole Zainab Zayd situation. I have a cousin named Zayd. So if we do have any Muslims who would like to come on, we welcome you. Come and challenge me. Tell me that I'm misunderstanding something, and correct us. Let us just look real quickly. Let's look real quickly, see if there's any new news behind veils. It's kind of been, I don't think so. Yeah, doesn't look like we have anything new here. All right, you guys. Well, you know what? I think I may go ahead and okay. Well, thank you guys for coming on. If you haven't done it, please do it now. Jesus help me. Jesus forgive me. Jesus come into my heart. Jesus help me. Jesus forgive me. Jesus come into my heart. يسوع ساعدني. يسوع سامحني. يسوع ادخل قلبي. We love you, but much more importantly, he loves you. So thank you so much for being with us and have a wonderful night. God bless you guys.
If you have ever wondered why dull apologists lie so much, it's because on a rare occasion that they tell the truth, this happens.
One of the reasons I accepted Islam was the scientific miracles. I'll be honest with you. And now we know that this whole scientific miracles was absolute nonsense.
You're going to have to repeat that.
Now we know
that the standard narrative has holes in it. That's what I'm going to say.